Hello everyone and welcome to Week 4 NA Day 1 of the PPL. Today Renegades have a doubleheader, once against G2, once against SK. I think everyone's interested to see what teams are going to show up today. My name, as always, is Gormizer, and joining me on the desk for the pre-show is Rain Day and Pretty Hair. How are you guys feeling today?
Terrific.
T.
What's a good
T.
T. Time for T.
You like that wordplay?
It was
Really high level. Think
masterful.
about it. Think about it.
I was trying to think of another T word that would be able to describe it other than terrific,
Tubular.
but tubular.
Tubular.
Oh.
Topical.
The
since
noise
we're talking
is
about it.
the perfect last one. But topical, as the way things have been going. Renegades today are going to be playing, but they're kind of taking the back seat, I want to say, for set number 1, because not only is G2 playing, who everyone is, I would say, kind of the hometown favorites,
Yeah.
but Bodies is back. He's finally going to be coming through. He took a 3-week break,
big.
so he's finally going to be able to come in. And my question is, are they going to return to the top here? Is this going to be G2 stomping everybody? Or do they need a little bit of a reunion period with Bodies?
You know, I think Bodies is going to be a big contribution factor here. I think, obviously, the biggest part about G2 Esports is that Bodies and Evil Eye, when they are on, are a pretty unstoppable duo across the entire world, and they haven't had an entire split to work together. I don't know what that means. There's still plenty of time for them to practice and get that, good juju before LAN, but this is going to be a great start to what is a partnership that will have to perform if they want to make a run at Worlds.
I think it was Doseps that said last time they were here at LAN that Evil Eyes had to retry out for his spot like a bunch of times, which is kind of mind-blowing to really think about. And I don't think Bodies will be playing. I think, honestly, if he wasn't ready to come back and in the position that G2 is in, normally they're always like comfortably out in first place. In this position now where they are in second, I don't think they would be playing him if he wasn't ready.
Normally when we see teams make some sort of swap, yesterday we saw Thiel for Unbelievable, or just in the past whenever a sub has to step in, that's normally the moment when we look at like the lower tiered teams, I would say, even though Renegades is number 3, I think right now in North America, and say, is this the time for them to strike? Do you think this is the time for Renegades to actually beat G2, or do you think because it's Bodies, they don't even have that much of a shot?
Well, yes, and for many reasons. One, Renegades and G2 have always had this really weird dynamic. Even when Shady Shades was a part of that early G2 roster at the start of the PPL, they had this kind of lights are on, it's G2, #1 team, let's take them to 5 games, let's beat them, and let's throw things for a curveball. But also I think that we saw, with Unbelievable coming in, it was a rough transition with Theo gone, and you just take a team that's been playing a certain way and you add a new dynamic. It will take a little bit of time. Might take a game, might take 5 games for them to get into the rhythm. I think G2 will win, but I'm definitely experiencing the potential for Renegades to throw a curveball.
Yeah, Renegades certainly have a shot today, but I think the ball is in G2's court. I'll be curious to see if they do anything differently, right? With the Bodies coming back in, typically a little bit more of a flexible player, I think we can consider than Payan, who played primarily just Andro and Cassie through his stint, admittedly very well, but I think Bodies has a little bit more that he can bring to the table.
So with the way North America is shaped out, it's actually kind of swapped with where Europe was kind of going through the summer split. One of the things about North America was always that, you never know who's going to do what. Everyone's still topsy-turvy.
Right.
And I feel like there's still that essence, but when we were looking at the standings, Europe is at the point where Fnatic and NIP, if anyone makes a mistake, the other one gets to go to LAN over them or gets the bye overall to HRX. Whereas North America right now is pretty segmented. Envy's at the top, G2 seems pretty solidly in second, then Renegades and Splice maybe being able to take some games off each other, and unfortunately SK is at the bottom. How do you feel about, I guess, like the competition level in North America right now?
I think Renegades has put themselves in a lower position than they traditionally have, and normally they are a little bit more competitive for that second spot, but you're right, they are sort of firmly in third place here now. Splice is trying to come up out of the gutter, SK is on their way circling the drain, and so I think that's kind of why we've landed where we've landed.
Now, what's interesting here is, again, if Renegades were to somehow pop off, they can draw even with G2 today.
Yeah.
So that would make for a really interesting rest of the split. I don't know if that'll happen, but truly with G2 taking that Envy loss, are susceptible to taking a Renegades loss here and then having an issue of maybe not qualifying for LAN. I mean, surely if Renegades beat G2, you would assume Renegades could beat SK, and then they are in that contest. So G2, I think, are facing a must-win game. They know it. I think we know it, and they're going to prepare for it.
So with the way things are going, like you said, G2 pretty much kind of needs to win their game.
They gasta.
SK is in this really awkward position where they were starting to look okay against Envy. They were able to come through. They, I think, pushed it all the way to 5 games.
Yeah.
They win a couple. They look really good. And it makes me wonder, where's that SK been the entire time? Can we expect to see that team today or not?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's a great moment, because I don't know either. And no one's going to really tell who's going to show up. I mean, it's really that, like, there is no rhyme or reason as to the success level SK have had or not had. It just ends up happening or not.
You know, they do have so many talented players on that squad. It's just whether they mesh or not, man, whether they show up. I don't really know what's going on. There's been relatively kind of little communication from SK, you know, over Twitter and stuff like that about, you know, what we think is going wrong, what steps we're taking to reprimand our performance this split. And, you know, without anything, no eyes on the inside, what can you really say?
You bring a really good point, because, I mean, who have we heard from on SK that says anything on Twitter, right? Not in vocal. Bitey's allowed, but not in that way. Bit. He's old on our, you know, he's allowed on our Discords and things like that about balance and champions. But in terms of his pro play, not really. And Dethroner really is the only guy. Payne's silent as well. Maybe some people, but you talk about Dethroner really speaking the most, and he's the newest player in this roster. No wonder they are an enigma to us. We don't know what's going on with them. We don't know what they think about their losses. We don't know why they say they lost. So it is very hard. It leaves us in this position where we just speculate, and then we just wait to see what happens.
So I'd like to be able to wonder if you're speculating at this point. We had a bye week between when SK, I want to say, started to show some signs of life, when they're actually able to say, look, we have a heartbeat. We're not just completely dead in the water. Do you expect any more from them this week because they've had a bye week to kind of get things together? Or do you think it's still going to be the same old, we have no clue what we're going into?
Probably same old, same old.
SK are going to dominate today. Just want to have a hot take.
A hot take. I mean, it'd be really interesting to see them go through. I think, honestly, even if SK can find a win in a map, I think that's considered big for them, the way things have gone in the past. Do you think, is there anything specific that you would say they can walk away from today successful, even if they can't beat Renegades?
I think it's the same conditions for Mousesports, you know, show improvement, find a map. I mean, certainly if Renegades were to somehow pull out the game over G2, and then SK were to have a lightning game against Renegades and actually cement G2's spot and take what could have been an amazing turnaround from Renegades away from them, that would also be a successful day. I mean, it would show that NA is at least a competitive region towards the bottom end.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's tough to say, like, you know, for Bitey and Wiffle, two guys that have come from just a year ago being the #1 team in North America, to saying, well, maybe they'll get a map today. That's going to be what we set our goal on for today. It's weird to say that. It's tough to say that's a win for them, but you got to start somewhere.
Well, SK are the team that could potentially end up playing upsetter for today against Renegades, but Renegades do have to go through G2 first, and we got to sit down with Moonchopper and kind of get their feels as a whole about the matchup that they're going to have. So as we go to the break, before we start set one, let's go ahead and hear from him.
And first of all, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in a minute.
Hey, man, it's been a while. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. So you've got G2. I think this is going to be a tough matchups, obviously, for you guys, but you always seem to do fairly well. Historically, I would say you've done better against G2 than almost any other team in the league. Do you know why that is? Do you guys have a secret ace in the hole for G2? What is it that gives you that little bit of edge over them?
I think it's like our play style compared to everybody else. Because, you know, you have your aggressive playstyle, you have your reactionary playstyle, you have like a mixture of the two. I would say that like G2 is more on the aggressive side, and that can be capitalized on if you know how to, you know, sponge that aggression. But it's different for every team. You kind of just like build habits against certain teams, and you just learn how to counteract that. So
seeing as how G2 has had a substitute player for the majority of Split, has that changed how you guys look at this team, how you guys are preparing this team, or does it feel like going up against Flame is just as difficult as going up against iDrop Bodies?
I think they're different because they're different players, right? So it changes how G2 feels just playing against them versus like having Bodies versus them having Flame. I think there's like a positive and a negative in both, like having Bodies and having Flame in there. And yeah, it's just because everyone has like a weakness, like player wise, right? And so you kind of just figure that out and just how to capitalize on them. But they both have their you can tell there's a difference between the two. but not a difference in like skill, but a difference in how they affect and how they play within the team.
Do you feel like, at least mentally, approaching this matchup with G2, because they're no longer the top team in North America, does that change at all how you guys sort of feel? Because, you know, there's always got to be at least some level of nerves going up against Team Envy or Team G2 versus, like, going up against SK Gaming. Obviously, you respect every team in the league, but, you know, top teams are top teams.
I think since I've joined the team, even before I joined the team, G2 was easier than Envy. Playing wise, even before when I was here, when it wasn't me, when it was Poison, I remember like they would say that G2 has always been easier than Envy, and that kind of stems all the way back then too, when I was on Splice and Shady Shades was still on Renegades too, and that they took a map off of G2 back then too, right? I still think it stands that we think that G2 is like easier than Envy, and I think that just comes down to like our play styles. So.
Awesome. Well, good luck in your games today, man. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Paladins Premier League. My name's Renegade. That's Pretty here, and it's time to get into the action for North America today at Renegades doubleheader. Of course, if you are just joining us, plenty of great things happening on the horizon, Nick. One of the big ones we like to talk about, start the show, is Hi-Res Expo. That's what you saw all that footage for. That's where you want to be, November 16th through 18th. HiResExpo.com is where you can get your tickets. And also at afterpartyhrx.eventbrite/highresexpo.tickets on sale. I'm just kidding. I'll probably show you that at some point, but you can get some after party tickets on the link below in this screen. It's going to be a good time.
It's the best way to end your weekend at DreamHack. There's going to be all kinds of competition if you're a fan of Smite and Paladins. I know most of you are out there. The Hi-Res family is a tight-knit group, so why not hang out with them a little while afterwards as well. Can't wait for it, guys. Only a couple of weeks away at this point before the preliminary sort of qualifiers starts to begin. Here are the standings for North America. G2 Esports and the Renegades still kind of fighting for that second place spot. Envy still have some games to play, but they are out a little bit comfortable ahead in maps.
Yeah, 7-2 here is the score. So again, even if you see a tie ball game, Renegades tying up, winning both of these games, taking a loss to G2, it is possible. If G2 take a loss to Renegades, it would still put the map differential, even if they 3-0'd each set, in favor of G2. So G2 will be second no matter what. They may only just be tied at the end of the day with Renegades, and that just goes to show they've had a very excellent season, despite iDrop Bodies being the big conversation piece, wasn't there for most of the time.
Yep, he's back now today, though. We'll have to see if G2 have anything cheeky up their sleeves today for the Renegades, a team that has, in the interview, dubbed them a little bit easier. Not to say that the Renegades come out and beat them, but maybe just easier to stomach, more predictable, perhaps. Any of those words you could use to describe from the Renegades.
Yeah, and look at this. Jaguar Falls, G2's pick. Timber Mill banned as well from Renegades. And, you know, it's traditionally a map I think G2 took under their wing to learn and to say, we will know how to play on this. And it's for good reason I think Renegades ban it out. A lot of wacky stuff can happen. How do they get bodies comfortable? The Androx is banned immediately. The Drogo's taken away. That's a big pick for Evil Eye and Moonchopper, as we saw in the interview. And now the Furia ban as well. Something that Vex is very capable of working around.
Well, he's been gone for 3 weeks during the split. I don't know how long prior to that, if at all. So the game's been changing, I think, a fair bit. We've gone through sort of that mid-season balance. So what exactly Bodies has up his sleeve or what he feels comfortable on, we'll have to see. Makoa will be the first selection for G2. Khan will go shortly thereafter, followed by Willow.
Yeah, she's looking to be a deadly threat here because it's a small map. She's got the Khan damage amp, and she also doesn't have really another blaster to contend with her. So Maldamba and now the Fernando taking Makoa, though, is something that you don't often see given. In fact, G2, notably one of those teams that will sometimes give it up in a draft and let the other team play it. I was here with Sakyle and Lan a couple of times, and oftentimes those do come back to haunt you, though. You never feel good giving a Makoa to a team and watching that Makoa steamroll you.
Well, what do we want for the back line here? Leon is half of it. That's probably going to go to Bodies, though, so Evil Eye has to make a selection. Could be something like a Zin, maybe. actually be the Eevee. This could go to either. In the highlight reel for the intro for the PPL, it's Body's playing it, but Evil Eye
Remember the ping issues, right?
has been, yeah, he's been taking up the snow globe style, and it'll be Barrack to round things out for the Renegades. Feeling good about G2's lineup, though. I got to be honest, I really am.
Yeah, I mean, on this map specifically, I think Eevee has an opportunity here to really distract and just throw this Willow, throw this Yang, throw this Cassie off their game. Just be like, we have to deal with them, and if we don't, we're going to be in problems in Snowtown. Let's take a look at the poll. Guys, go ahead and give us your answers. Who do you think is going to win this set based on the drafts? I think I'm going to give my money to G2, although Renegades have a very strong draft as well.
Just slightly here for G2 on paper as well, and once you attach the names to the champions as well, you get a little bit more confidence even still for G2. Evil Eye and Body, some of the few North American Eevees that dip their toes in said waters. Random Noob historically would a little bit, but not many people have been playing the Winter Witch this season.
Well, Cuss on the Fernando is always a really strong thing, and Doe on the Makoa. I mean, these are two power picks for those players. Yeah. Those are two power picks for their damage dealers. Vex is on a power pick, comfort pick on the Maldamba. You feel like there's just going to be so much room for them to operate. However, Loki, operating towards the big game, as we've seen, switched up at the very end, maybe trying to catch them off guard. A lot of bootylicious titles, by the way, as well. I didn't know Barrack was so bootylicious.
Saw a ton of big game coming out from Tenor yesterday. He ran it 4 games in a row in that absolute bloodbath of a set that Fnatic had. Loki, with his Blood Moon Regalia, still kind of salty. I don't think I ever got that one there. I'm excited for this frontline matchup. Very rarely am I as excited for a 2v2 on the front line as I am when it's Cuss and Doe versus Kliku and Hero.
And this is going to be a very rough one for Cuss. He's going to have to manage this really well. Khan's Commander Grab actually goes through both the Shell Spin, the Shell Shield, and the shield from Fernando, and will actually stun them, do 600 damage, and cancel those long cooldowns. So they have to be careful about when they do it, where Kliku is, and you know he's going to be thinking about it. 59% edging the way in the mixer poll for G2 Esports, and already the point would suggest that 39% counting for them.
This is kind of funny. It feels like it's just G2 sort of chasing Renegades around the objective, sort of Scooby-Dooing each other. Nobody really has a dominant
G2,
force on you. I've got some Renegades now. Finally, first blood at like 2 minutes in. Evil Eye's able to wormhole out. Doesn't even need to burn the ice block. He looks like he's running some Rift Walk, or is that Swift Spirits? Because he is zooming.
Well, he's actually not running Rift Walk, so I guess you're seeing the benefit of those Swift Spirits.
He was flying.
Yeah, it's awesome. Killing Frost too, I like the addition of that. But yeah, I mean, really, Swift Spirits is just one of those cards, man. It feels so good. It is so impactful. And you might as well get Rift Walk.
Well, that's going to be the first payload going to G2 Esports. Took a while to get going there, and they blew it wide open as they tend to do. Evil Eye's ultimate is ready to go. So is Immortal, and Dread Serpent is nearly there as well. A nice little flutter.
Yeah.
Will deter any further aggression.
Yeah. It's smart, just knows Evil Eye probably not going to hit him there, so I'll use that, even though it's a cooldown, to just make sure I avoid any of this damage. But now he's half health. Now this Flutter is a little bit more deadly. Now Dosips may be able to move in. Cannonballs finding their way towards the Fairy, but none hit the Fae. So he will back off. Turtle will go the other route. Cuscutie still working on the right side there, but look to be held down by Hero and Loki on that big game Cassie, and that's going to be probably the hardest challenge for Dosips to play around with that Leviathan Makoa. It's 1630 a shot after it is hit with disengage. I know, because I did a video on it.
That is crazy talk here.
Yeah.
Imagine just seeing that in the patch notes. Cassie bolts now do 1620. Rip Eevees everywhere there.
Rip.
So much health to get through on this Renegade squad. Doesn't seem to be having much of a trouble with it. Let's take a look actually at Cassie's loadout. See if he's kind of running the same sort of things that Tenor was taking. Looks to be pretty much the same.
All he did was actually take one off of Drain Life, from what I've seen a lot of players do, and really add it into Territorial and make sure that's not 4, that's 5. You get your maximum value off of that. You still get your kinetics, so you still get the anti-heal. And I like that he's added Quiver. I mean, just gets a couple extra shots before the reload, and when you hit that disengage, you got to take advantage of it now, baby. I like it.
45 seconds on the clock, but this payload continuing to move. Only one ultimate used there from G2 Esports, the Dread Serpent. And they're getting value, and it's just a really quiet end to that first round.
It feels like this was just a somebody walking down, like you mentioned in this earlier round, the entirety of Renegades, and they all just slowly but surely gotta keep their eyes on them like a bear in the forest who's recognized that you're a little too close to the baby cub. And you just back up. She walks towards you, just back up. And all of a sudden, you're out the forest. She's still in it. You both go your separate ways.
And only 1 kill taken for the Renegades in that entire first round. Relatively quick on the push after what was a fairly long capture fight. And Renegades... Edad shows some signs of life here fairly quick. Or this one's going to be over. Cuss not too far off of top damage with his Fernando, but we know he's really come out of the gate as a frontline in this split and really put himself in the conversation for one of the most aggressive to ever do it.
Fantastic customization from Evil Eye there, going on the Founders Pack Warhorse with the Halloween Eevee in honor of October and all the magic things that witches can do. However, not running that snow globe that he kind of made famous earlier on in this split. Showed to much avail the success it could have. 58% though, and you know, Renegades again.
When did that happen? Who was on the objective?
It was Click You the entire time.
I thought I just saw Cuss sort of just run through, get overpowered off. Then I looked at the top of the screen and it was 55 to nothing, 93 to nothing now for the Renegades.
Man, look at that. Josephs melts. And you got to say, Big Game probably had something to do with it. Cuskey going into the Immortal, but boy, that would have been wonderful to have when Josephs was Ancient Raging, wasn't it? Because that would have guaranteed some trouble in that room. Overtime taken away now, 99%. Evil Eye on the ice block trying to heal up. Vex gives him the gourd. There's a Dread Serpent as well. Click You immediately with the firing line, and he's going to CC immune that, and Josephs is back in the action, and so is Evil Eye.
Okay, Vex is looking really snappy here on this Maldama, making sure he's getting every little healing cooldown off. You see his crosshair whipping around, landing good fears as well, and it had to be the anchor really for bringing this back. G2 Esports down pretty much 99 to nothing, now climbing back north of 80.
And this could be it. Moonchopper, obviously, with a seedling on the point or a dead zone is going to make things difficult, but that kill on Click You, all but guaranteed, a 3-0 here. And now it's up to defend, but they've lost one of their front lines. Hero just rocket bootsing away. Josephs wants to go for a hook, but he's half health, so waiting for Vex. Little gourd. And it's going to move over on that left side, but pretty dominant so far from G2.
Pretty good from Embodies as well. I think it's great to have a game like this on your first PPL game back. It's good to play Leon too. Fairly simple, right? Hit your stuff, do your thing, stay safe. Not much more is going to be asked of you there. G2 Esports, their front line always gives a ton of space to work with. They honestly will dominate the game if you let them. They will top damage if you let them. So definitely not a lot to be asked of Mr. Bodies here in game one. We'll have to see if that changes moving on in the set.
And it does feel like, you know, there are these similar kind of conversations that you can have around Click You and Hero, right? I mean, if you let them, they will dominate a game as well. Put them on this Fernando, put them on a Khan, put them on an Inara, an Ashe, a Barrack, whatever you want to say, those two will be devastating. And I feel like maybe that's why we see some of this G2 Renegades back and forth. They're kind of butting heads. They have a very similar play style in what they like to do and who commands a lot of the attention on those teams. And oftentimes it ends up in a stalemate, but this kind of backing up continuous nature of giving so much space that Renegades have put on, it feels like they've stopped what is integral to their identity.
Well, the Illusory Rift, all that healing will probably stem the aggression for now. So will the death of Cuss Cutie. Bodies pops his Enlightenment, gets caught by Kliku. What a monster here. Kliku getting a lot done for his squad. Loki finds 3. And I almost brought this up in the draft, but I was a little surprised that Renegades didn't go for something like an Ashe. And most of that comes off of just, I guess I don't really know what Hero likes to play. He used to be that point frontline guy for Renegades.
Yeah.
Playing a little bit of the Barrack here. I don't know what his champion pool is exactly.
He reminds me very much of the champion pool of Tolkien, but just a little bit less. Obviously, Renegades with a lot less success than Envy in this last year, so I don't think has gotten that recognition, that credit, and admittedly, it hasn't yet been deserved because, you know, Tolkien has had some of these moments that have been absolutely game-changing and defined, you know, some of the Renegades' play. I think Hero is really waiting to have those kind of moments and has the potential for sure, but talking about a guy who's living up to his potential, Vex right now looking fantastic. G2 with a 4-0 here on Jaguar Falls.
That was sort of indicative of the rest of that game. Vex is just like snapping to teammates like, who needs health? No one. Okay. No one still. All right. I'm just going to fear this because I'm bored at this point here.
Get it out of my
He
face.
hits a nice one, albeit. But, I mean, not a lot for the support to do there down the stretch.
And he was really excellent across the board. 119,000 healing in what couldn't have been much more than a 10-minute game, although they did take their time on these objective fights. It was a 9-minute game, so actually beating the minutes is a big deal by 10,000 per minute. You would assume maybe 90,000, keeping pace with a good healing record. And so he's about 30,000 above that, showing you the kind of work that he put in. Swift Spirits 5, though, don't forget how good that feels and how much of a difference that makes. And also running to Eerie Presence 3. That's actually a pretty low level of that.
Just because he's insane.
He's that good.
He's insane.
Dang, dude.
And that's a pretty insane healing number. I was going to say G2 liked to buy Rejuvenates, but only 3 of them had Rejuvenate 1. It wasn't even a big factor. There was no Inara. It was just Vex doing his thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you just look at that game. If that game lasts another 10 minutes, some pretty astronomical numbers. Renegades here now picking and going to split Stone Quarry for their second game, trying to turn things around here. G2 Esports obviously in second place. Renegades have a lot of work to do in their doubleheader, but it all begins with a map. It all begins with a point, and that's what they're still searching for. They're first in this entire set.
Now, is this the Renegades map pick, or is this G2?
Renegades map pick.
So G2's relationship with Splitstone has been a little up and down.
They've lost to Renegades on this map.
Yeah, they used to ban it like all the time, and they started to pick it a little bit, so we'll have to see where they end up sitting now. The Eevee ban tells us Renegades might be looking for a sniper, and we know that Loki loves that.
And
He's actually
early,
kind of a Strix guy, in my opinion. I don't know if they'll go for Kinessa here.
that's true. He is a Strix guy. And I think they'd be fine to maybe match that. Loki maybe just coming in with a little bit more je ne sais quoi on how he likes to perform, and body's still warming up, you would assume. But so far, looking real good. And now the Androxus, big task, but very, very doable with the way he's been performing this split.
That's a good front line from Renegades at the moment. They get the Khan Nando, and Nara is still open. I wonder if G2 will head that way. Torvald is also open, and G2 have done a little bit of work with that. It's not the Eevee, but Torvald Andro will look just fine, I'm sure. They will keep that open, their last front line, if they want said third front line, and it may not end up going that way when it's all said and done here. Renegades round out with Leon and Ying.
Yeah, and so I think this is interesting, and I like this call. To me, some teams that we've seen will go all in on this, like Andro, and just be like, Torvald, bubble the Andro, and, you know, throw in a freaking Luminary Genos out of nowhere. And you're just like, you know, does he really need it? I think he's okay. Get a front line who can contest while you drop a Nara one of those times and really stall the point out. And I think that's what Barrett can do very well. Who do you think is going to win this game, ladies and gentlemen? It's up to you to decide and tell us what you think will happen. I think that the poll was right last game, 49% if I'm correct.
Yeah.
On to G2, and so we'll see if there's a little bit more swinging in their favor after a very dominating performance in Game 1.
Drafts, again, pretty good for both squads here. I like the Renegades front line a little bit more, and I like the front line players in this set a little bit more, and I wonder how the adjustments will be for G2, because this is a much more passive front line than what they had in Game 1.
Well, Splitstone Quarry brings a lot of questions. G2 have had answers thus far. High drop bodies given the task of the heads will roll Androxus, and of course it begs the question, is he running Abyssal Touch? We already know the answer. If we take a look at his loadout, I'm sure it is a yes. And it is at level 5 as we would have seen. We saw a couple of variations of the 4 other cards around it. I've actually seen today as well, Elusive completely dropped and actually just through the warp, or just Elusive and no through the warp. And
I think you're missing the most important part here, though, and that is the Skinnergy at the moment. You know, he's hot off the press.
Look at this.
Just back from vacation, but the gold revolver with the fallen skin. Woo! I like it.
The Skinnergy, the Skinnergy, the Skinnergy. That's what it's all about. And a seedling coming through and goes into the grinder.
Was that what that was a
to
seedling?
make peanut butter, yeah.
I was like, what was that?
What does seedlings
like a
produce when you
tumbleweed.
grind them? Yeah. Almond butter from almonds, peanuts from peanut butter. Seed butter? I don't know. That doesn't sound tasty.
Not at all. That doesn't look like... I don't know. Maybe it is, you know, because, like, pineapples are nasty-looking, like, fruits on the outside.
That's true.
But just, like...
It might be like a guava, like a jackfruit. Just deliciousness. It's pretty huge.
That was you that put that thing on Twitter, wasn't it?
It was.
It's like, how much do those weigh?
I don't know. More than I think at this point, the Renegades roster could carry. That's because they all aren't here. They're left without their buddies helping their task. G2 Esports had a great job controlling this objective, and Cutie, one of his rarer performances on a champion, and that's Barrick. Don't often see this guy on the young dwarf, but you know what? It's nice to see.
Evil Eye now looking out for that forward zone. And nobody from the Renegades getting too far away from the spawn outside of the front lines here.
You know, Nick, we have to mention that that was about as quiet as a point fight could get as well. It's just been a very quiet set.
It certainly has.
Just seeding all this. There's really been no contest, it feels like.
There is cutting your losses, and there is rolling over, and there is a fine line between them.
It does feel, you know, like the, I hate to make this analogy, but this is what comes into my head. It's just the owner and you know, or the dog or the wolf, you know, so to speak, fighting each other, and you know, they just, when the one wolf realizes he's beaten, he just rolls over, exposes the neck, and then the other wolf says, okay, got it. Maybe runs over, sniffs it a little bit, says, I could bite you, but I'm not. Now go back to work.
Evil Eye sneaks away a kill on the chopper as well. That allows bodies to penetrate the backline here, force the support back into spawn. And you can see him, he's not even really throwing hands at this point. He's just kind of zipping around looking for kills. And another quiet first round. G2 Esports, Dosip puts himself up on the wall and says, hello? Anybody home?
I think a lot of this also is let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room, these first pick cons that have not done anything. And Khan is one of those champions that in the last week of the PPL, before the bye week, had pretty much like an 18% win rate, although was extremely
did he really?
picked.
Whew.
And now he was banned and picked so many times, but when he was actually let through and actually picked up, in that 1 week he had one of the worst win rates I've seen. And so maybe a little bit of misconception on the value of the Khan here. Maybe an idea value, but not an actual execution value.
One thing I've noticed is that people seem to be playing less around it. I think BK Khan was like one of the strongest things
that's insane.
About Khan. And even if it's not BK, it could be someone else, right? You know, we've seen other combinations work. It's basically the same philosophy of like Fernando plus something. And I've seen a lot less of that. I've seen a lot less of like this bodyguard, this dynamic duo running around with Khan, and more of just like Khan by himself.
Yep. And I think, you know, ClickQ likes that. He likes to roam. Right now, Vex, all beautiful heal, man. That was, wow. Talk about just waiting to the last second. And then Vex with a Dread Serpent, just absolutely phenomenal. Bodies picks up a triple in the process. G2 Esports with the spray indeed, young sir. We had the returns of FRZ God, and now the returns of Bodies.
Mr. Enna looks just fine, knocking off all the rust with ease here. And his team certainly not making things any more difficult than they need to be here. It is a 100-0 capture for G2 Esports. Renegades had something once upon a time special against G2, but looks like that time may be coming to a close.
Don't look at the ultimates. I know I said don't think of a pink elephant.
And I immediately did.
Oh, no! I was going to ask you, did ClickQ overpower in that round?
I don't think I saw one, no.
So he did.
I saw him get feared.
Right, but he did, and that's the thing that we're talking about. I mean, just the lack of seeing the impact, it's so real when you really put it under a microscope.
And that should be a free kill on Splitstone.
It should be, right? And maybe it was, but the impact it had was so little that you barely would have known. And that's something a lot of teams have found that they have to play around. And so where does this go? Where does this lead us? Where does it transition? Maybe we'll see a little bit less in the future. Maybe it's just not the right comp. Maybe there's something else off about Renegades today.
I will say Cassie's pretty flexible in how you can play her, but Leon is a little bit passive in terms of what she is as a champion. I would say, so you've got 3.5 of these champions that are sort of aggressive. I'd say Khan and Fernando can really get out there. Ying is really good just because of her ultimate and throwing out clones to people that need them. But she can help sort of facilitate an aggressive style of composition, right? If there was an Andro or something instead of, you know, this Leon, something to keep pace with Kliko on the front line, maybe there would be a little bit more pressure.
You're totally right that something draft-wise is missing. But I think there's also something that's been added, and I think it is the return of Bodies, man. I think this feels like the old boys getting back together again for a college reunion. You know what I mean? It feels like this is the American Pie, so to speak, that we would see, and they have a crazy weekend together and make some more memories after just having the best of times back in their youth. It feels like G2 is back. They've got their whole crew, and they are just so confident. I mean, seismic crashing, no hesitation using ultimates on the push to be able to secure this victory. That's 2 in a row. That's 4 points every game without an answer from Renegades.
I'm ready to watch G2 Envy later this week, man. I'm like, get me to that matchup already, please. I want to see G2 Esports back at their full strength, full confidence, go at the now new kings of North America. Envy, I mean, they haven't been able to take that title and have it for long. G2's already going to be hungry to take it back.
They certainly are. It's just setting up for such an incredible day as well. And maybe you could see it slipping. Maybe you could see Renegades and whatever they have, that glue that's given them that edge over G2 in the last year has kind of started to seriously fade away. But Bodies, nice return there.
Yeah, no kidding, man. What a way to come back in. Looking very good. Getting, you know, a couple of different characters as well. We'll have to see what he runs in Game 3. So far, Leon looks good. Andro looks good. Oh, there was the overpower.
Yeah, okay. And that was, look at that. Bodies just body blocked it for him. What an appropriate job for Bodies.
Huh.
That was smart. I bet that was
drop
probably...
bodies, and I block bodies.
I drop bodies, I block bodies. I was going to say something else, but let's be appropriate here.
Good on you, mate.
Serpent Beach here. The map that will maybe tell it all. G2 Esports have not dropped a game, but they also haven't dropped a point. And that is very important because you get a point for defending in Paladins. And pushes are not guaranteed.
Certainly not. And their map differential was already looking pretty good. And it continues to get better and better here.
That's probably why they have such a strong emphasis on cleaning this one 3-0 because, you know, with Envy, they tie it up and they win. That's what it's going to come down to.
And that's how summer went. Honestly, don't remember how their matchups went in spring, but Rock Monkey was on vacation for their first matchup. Bodies this time around, he was on vacation for their first matchup, and now they get to come back together, both teams at full strength, and settle the score. Makoa will be the selection again for G2. They get it first. Taking the Damba away from Vex. We know it's kind of like his favorite character. Fury has been banned this whole set, which is cool to see.
And G2 banning the Khan here, they get the Makoa again. So 2 games where they get the Makoa, you feel really confident about that. The other game, they get the Inara. I mean, they've had great selections across the board. They've had Fernando anytime they've really wanted. Cuss did that flex on the Barrack, but that game was won through the Androxus. It feels like there really haven't been any drafts where G2 have been limited on anybody. And that's one of the big things we have to see. Renegades putting some focus, some pressure onto G2.
I like this. I think G2 take the Leon, and Fernando just because it's good for Cuss, but Leon deters the Willow. There is an Inara still open. I think G2 are thinking Renegades is just wanting to take Inara Willow there, but they pivot pretty hard here with Eevee Ashe. That's not something I think G2 would have smelled coming.
I like it, man. The pip. This is exciting. This is exciting. This should be a Cuss Cutie pip, ladies and gentlemen, but it may be a Vex pip as well. And actually, it will be a Vex pip because you have that Fernando locked in. So who do you think is going to win? Vex can pilot it just as good as the others. I would expect this has to be that Mega Potion then going for the healer route. Nick, who do you give the edge to with the Eevee now in the hands of Renegades?
I think this is a good adjustment from the Renegades. On paper, again, it's been hard to call all 3 games so far, but once you attach the names to those characters, I think when you start to get more versatile, when you start to want to move things around, G2 only gets stronger. The times where I see G2 fall apart is when they get vanilla, when they get too textbook for themselves.
Yep.
The more you ask them to flex, I think the happier they will be to flex around.
And that is such an interesting thing. And look at this. Look at this. It's Bounce House. Oh, my. Will we really see it back? I saw this against the other day. And anyone who's... No, it's bulk up. Oh, man. I thought I was going to get so excited. Why you got to crush my dreams like that?
Someday. Big game slug shot, though. Everything else fairly standard for the Renegades. Little old Eevee. What can she do? What can she do? And already dropped a half health. That's a Cassie off the high ground. That's a first blood at 1 minute in.
My God, Hero also melting, and Cassie just feels like a bystander to that. Now him and Viral are under pressure, hiding behind his own little pillar in the back line. A gourd at his feet, but this Maldamba, no Shadow Lord here. Body's just walking in, saying what up, walking out, bulk up for you. And 27% and counting on the objective.
Coming through, Bam. Don't mind me. I don't want to do anything. I'm not here to shoot anyone. Just passing through.
Just passing through. Nice to meet you. Puts his fist together.
That was comedy gold right there. That's good content, ladies and gentlemen, here at the PPL. That's what we're bringing. 76% on the poll in chat. And I think that's a safe bet.
Ew. That's too much damage. How did Dinar die that fast? She's supposed to be tanky, right, Nick?
Supposedly. I'm told.
I'm told, too. Those globs of spit look like me spitting on somebody in the parking lot, not doing much damage. Maybe a little insulting.
Is that your weapon of choice? Insults and loogies.
Insane spit trajectory.
It is pretty good. It is fairly good. That's a good little snake.
And, you know, 400 damage per shot comes out pretty quickly. You know, if only it had a little, like, dot, like its own little version of spit combustible. Or it just had to look like...
You could
2 damage.
You could shoot the gourd in midair and have it explode and apply its full duration dot to everyone.
And then you get like a basically the reload card for Pip for if you hit multiple people, reduce the cooldown of gourd by this many times. That would be sick.
Now we're cooking with fire.
Just turn Maldamba into Pip, basically.
We just thought of a viable gourd legendary. We did it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We did it. There it is.
Welcome to Paladins Design.
That's
Next
what we
up,
do.
I think Dredge should be able to throw his harpoon infinitely.
You know, I played about 5 games of Dread, only one without Hurl, and I was like, never again.
Never again.
I can't play another way. I need this all the time.
Now, the question is...
That felt like an ice storm.
Yeah, it looked like Moonchopper was definitely having the potential to close it out, but he just gets bamboozled, man. And that's the thing. Pip is a great pick, and I always love these like last-minute pips, these last-minute things that you don't really expect but work. I mean, it's just a lot of burst. It's a lot of burst damage, which is what a lot of people forget.
That was a missed slide turned into a disengage that actually saved Evil Eye's life. So even when things go wrong, things are going right here for G2.
My.
And because of that, I don't know if there's much that the Renegades can do at this point to stop them. Damage is landing. Eevee is struggling into this Leon matchup, to say the least, as well as G2 are playing well.
This is insane.
They're staying clumped, right? They're not giving her any easy avenues.
Dude, this is crazy. This is not G2 beating Renegades. This is giving them the old beatdown. This is taking them outside with a belt.
Not really what we're used to. Not really what we talked about on the desk. And that might just be a time passed at this point here. Renegades not looking like it. They have much to say here against G2, a team that they dubbed easier than Envy.
Nah, I'm scared for their Envy matchup if that happens again. I mean, I have to remind myself of the schedule, but I mean, at the end of the day, man, this is just like, I think just bullying, online bullying personified here. Truly just absolutely non-relenting pressure that you just can't find a way around. Feels like it's pervasive, ever present.
Renegades do make some bigger adjustments in the draft, and I think, you know, the Buck, the Pip, that's more stuff that the Renegades probably didn't smell coming, and G2 are really good at doing what they want to do. Dosups pops his Ancient Rage literally just to stay alive.
Tactical.
And has the wisdom just to say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to get much else with this. I'm not going to be an idiot and run at people that I don't need to. Cancels it out. Accepts that fact. Getting tossed around a little bit at the moment here. Getting feared, getting knocked up. Doe's got to find some footing.
I mean, this is the only moment, right, where we've seen some hesitation in these fights. And now Moonchopper finds a kill. Like, this is a fight. They're actually fighting now.
Immortal's too late.
And you know, and it really looks like it's more mistakes from G2 rather than amazing adjustments.
We shouldn't have said anything.
From Renegades. And right now, man, let's give a shout out to Vex as well. Just beautiful timing on the ultimate. Good target prioritization on the Inara. ClickQ's isolated by himself. Can't do much against that. Now let's take a look at the healing charts as well, just to see how he's keeping up, or beating, I would assume. Head by about 30,000.
What's Rejuve? What are the items looking like? Is there a lot of Rejuve or something?
Barely, man. I mean, no, there's a good amount. No, there's a lot. There's a lot. Never mind. 4 members have one.
But you got to remember, Rejuvenate 3 is half of Earth and Guard at base that Heroes had the whole game.
Yeah.
That's normally what healers will lean on. That's normally how you just pad the stats, how you always win in the healing charts, if that matters much to you, is to just have an aura. But I mean, G2 Esports, they play so well. They have always played so well around this pit.
And you know, maybe taking a different approach to this Renegades matchup, and it maybe would be them underestimating Renegades and maybe having things so comfortable in terms of the season where they were first place and never questioning whether they would qualify or how they would qualify as far as seeding. But now with those questions raised, it feels like they have answered the call and raised their own game with bodies returning. Renegades not really having a chance. The first stall we've essentially seen on a push for G2 have been slowly trotting away.
A fight. That's one. I mean, we're like kills even. Like there was one kill in that first round for the Renegades. There's been multiple rounds that nearly everyone on G2 is going deathless. So talk about what you want to see that you can call a win here today. I mean, I guess if you have to start somewhere, it sucks that it's literally getting a kill.
Woo. Oh my goodness. And you know, where's it all working? Where's it all happening? Wow, I did not expect this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I expected some dominance. We know Renegades usually give G2 Esports a little bit of problems, but not today.
Nope. Tosup's very healthy and still has Ancient Rage. Eating some pressure now. Shell spins away from the objective, won't get his Ancient Rage off. A little bit of an oopsie there on the Shell spin. May have been able to hack his way through the remaining members there, but again, another hold from the Renegades. Uh-oh. 2 ultimates in hand. Evil Eye's a really good player, this just in.
And he's going to go ahead and clean up Loki by himself, and that opens up the room for Bodies to not have to fully retreat. And look at that, what a hook! It saves Bodies' life. Bulk up just in time.
Seals reload, man.
That is so unfortunate. And now, with an Ancient Rage, you have to assume that Dosups and the rest of G2 are going to be able to clean this up. A beautiful hook. That's just support play from the front line, personified.
Loki's finna get scooped here. Scooped and booped indeed, and
scoopty boopty
scoopity poopty whooped. There is someone still there on the objective. Kliku is taken down. Payload, man, ready to go home. Emotes and some of the biggest ultimates in the composition to spare.
Well, that will do for today, sir.
So what do you gather around about this set?
Renegades still waiting to see them start their doubleheader. And G2 Esports, man, Bodies is back.
He is, indeed.
Definitely back.
He runs a couple of flexible things. In times past,
games.
Evil Eye's on Buck, and he's on Leon. That's not the way that I'm thinking that's going. But it's good to see a little bit of change here from G2 overall. They're basically Fnatic of NA as well. Always kill it online and falling short on land, making little adjustments, and albeit the adjustments made for G2 in the fall split have gone much better than Fnatic's adjustments have gone for them in the fall split.
Well, that's going to do for game, set number 1. It almost feels like a game. That did not take very long. Your PPL is halfway over. Would you believe it? But, you know, if any PPL in the past has given me some experience to talk about as to what to expect in set 2 with Renegades and SK coming up, I would say that you should probably expect the majority of the broadcast time to be taken in that set. It feels like if we got a 3-0 here, it's going to be a 3-hour barn burner in the final set of today, which we'll be getting to very, very soon. Final closing thoughts, Nick, about G2 and Bodies' return.
They certainly look like they're on the way up here. G2 rocky through the start of the fall split here, but looks like they could still be a contender for the crown in NA.
It also, I think, looks like Renegades honestly have to figure out whether they're going to, change something, whether they're going to look the direction of, depending on how their SK matchup goes, maybe roster swaps, maybe roster conversations, maybe, just pruning or maybe development of certain players that they feel like, hey, man, you're the one who we feel needs to really step up their game. And as a team, we're trying to help bring you up, but not let you go.
There's never been a bigger gap in between 2 and 3, and I don't think any region in Europe or NA for the entirety of the PPL. I mean, this is just dominance from the top 2, and the bottom 3 are just struggling massively.
And Bodies was the MVP. Well, you enjoyed his return, as we all on the casting and production side did as well. Taking a look at his new found, I think, just respect at being able to take that break, come back, still be an elite player, really let you know where they stand, where he stands as far as the North American power ranking scene. That's going to be it for game number 1, set number 1 here in the PPL. We've got set 2 coming up. It's Renegades continuing their doubleheader versus SK Gaming. Stick around.